The curse of the jack-o'-lantern. Before the pumpkin smiled, a man bargained with the devil and lost. Act 1. The first light they saw was not a candle. It was a spark, faint, wandering, and impossibly alive, drifting above a bog in the Irish countryside where no fire should burn. On mist-heavy nights, travellers glimpsed it from the road, a lonely glow bobbing beyond the reeds. Some called it the devil's ember. Others said it was a soul that had forgotten how to die. The light never went out. It moved when they moved, and those who followed it vanished into the swamp. But one man wasn't afraid. His name was Jack, a drunkard, a trickster, and a man who cheated at cards and at death itself. To his neighbours, he was a nuisance. To the priests, a lost cause. One autumn night, colder than sin, Jack met a stranger in the tavern at the edge of the bog. The man was tall, dressed in black, and silent except for the sound of coins clinking softly in his glove. When he lifted his head, the firelight caught his face. Smooth, pale, and wrong, like wax given breath. Jack grinned. "Stranger," he said, "you look as though you've come from hell itself." The man smiled. For a moment, Jack saw he cast no shadow. Then his reflection in the glass was gone. Still, Jack laughed. "Are you the devil, then? Because if you are, you'll find me good company." The stranger's grin widened. The air turned cold enough to frost the mugs on the table. When the fire guttered out, the devil spoke for the first time. "One drink," he said, "for your soul." Jack leaned forward, unfazed. "A fair trade," he replied. "But how about one more? On me." And so began the bargain that would burn longer than the candlelight of every Halloween to come. Act 2. The devil followed Jack from the tavern, walking beside him through the mist like a shadow pretending to be a man. The moon hung bloodless above the bog. The wind refused to move. Jack, drunk but cunning, knew every story of how the devil trapped weak men. He also knew every loophole. They came upon an apple tree, gnarled and skeletal. Jack stopped beneath it. "If I'm to give you my soul," he said, "let me taste one last apple before you take it." The devil laughed, a sound like iron scraping stone, and climbed the tree. As he reached for the fruit, Jack drew his knife and carved a ring of crosses into the bark. The moment the circle closed, the devil froze. Firelight shimmered around him, bound by the mark of faith. Jack leaned on the trunk, grinning. "Now," he said, "it seems the devil's the one in need of mercy." The devil cursed him, but at last agreed to Jack's demand, never to claim his soul. Only then did Jack erase the marks and set him free. When the devil vanished, the tree split with a thunderous crack. Jack went home laughing, certain he'd beaten hell itself. But years passed. Jack grew older, meaner, slower. And when death came, heaven turned him away. His sins too many, his tricks too cruel. At hell's gate, the devil smiled. "Jack," he said, "you are a man of your word. And so am I. You will not enter my realm." He tossed Jack a single burning coal. "Light your way in the dark." Jack hollowed a turnip from the roadside and placed the ember inside. The wind blew through its carved holes, and his face glowed, twisted by fire, smiling with the same cruelty that damned him. And from that night on, travellers swore they saw a lantern drifting through the fog, never still, never extinguished, always smiling. Act 3. For generations, that light wandered the countryside, across roads where no one should walk after dark. Farmhands saw it pacing the hedgerows. When they ran, it followed. When they prayed, it drew nearer. The people called it Jack of the Lantern, the soul that tricked the devil and found no home in heaven or hell. To keep him away, villagers carved their own lanterns, hollowed turnips with crude faces to frighten him off. Each was lit with a candle stolen from the church altar, the only flame thought strong enough to bind him. Every October, the fields filled with faces, thousands of glowing heads burning like watchful eyes. But sometimes, the faces changed. A grin that hadn't been carved, a flicker where there was no wind. And once, a child swore he saw his reflection inside the lantern, smiling when he wasn't. Old women whispered that a lantern which never went out meant Jack had found a new home. And by morning, someone in the village would be gone. When famine came, the story crossed the sea with those who fled. In America, they found a fruit larger and easier to carve, the pumpkin. Its hollow body welcomed the fire, and so the ritual changed. The faces grew friendlier, the smiles wide enough to forget their purpose. But the fire still burned, and something behind those grins still watched. Even today, in the far fields of Ireland, farmers refuse to walk after dark in late October. They say if you listen closely, you can hear footsteps between the pumpkins, slow, dragging, crunching through the frost. And if you blow out every light, the sound doesn't fade. It stops, right behind you. Act 4. In 1845, during the Great Famine, a parish priest named Father Connolly wrote of a farmer who unearthed a turnip carved like a human face. Its surface was burned black, as if fire had once lived inside it. When the farmer cracked it open, a faint orange glow escaped and vanished into the night. Days later, his barn burned to the ground. His wife claimed she saw a tall figure walking away from the fire, carrying a lantern that smiled. Father Connolly sealed the turnip in a stone box beneath his church and wrote one warning in Latin, non iterum accendatur. Let this light never burn again. 2 years later, lightning struck the steeple. The reliquary was never found. Centuries passed, and the story softened, told to children as harmless folklore. But in the dusty archives of the Irish clergy, Connolly's note remains. Every light is a prison, every grin a seal. Modern legend says the jack-o'-lantern's smile keeps the cursed soul contained, that the flame inside isn't wax or wick, but the devil's coal. Each October, when the veil between worlds thins, the ember awakens. It searches for a vessel bright enough to hold it. That's why we still carve them, why we light them, why we place them by our doors, pretending it's all for fun. Because the old ritual still matters. Because deep down, some part of us remembers what happens if the flame goes out. They say if your lantern's light dies before midnight on Halloween, you'll hear faint laughter, a voice whispering, "One last drink." And then you'll see it, a wandering light in the dark, floating closer, following you home. Most will tell you it's nothing, just a story, just Halloween. But when you look into the eyes of your pumpkin, remember, the first jack-o'-lantern was never carved to celebrate the season. It was carved to contain it. And every year we light them, we keep the curse alive. Because somewhere out there, in the dark between this world and the next, Jack is still waiting. And he's tired of walking alone.